Members of Parliament, support staff, observers in the public tribune, radio listeners, TV viewers, all following this meeting via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the continuation of this public meeting for today, Wednesday, February the 4th. This is public meeting number 7. At this time, I want to give a special welcome to the Prime Minister, Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Mercelina, the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Mr. Richnel Brug, and their respective support staffs. We have established a quorum of 10 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notices of absence from the members Kotai, Doran, York, and MP Lewis, but I recognize that he's here with us. Thank you for making it to the meeting, MP Lewis. I don't have any notices of lateness. Does any member have the need for the notifications from the floor? Yes, we do. We have, firstly, MP Lewis. MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Honorable Prime Minister, the Minister of Health and his support staff. Good afternoon to those in the Tribune. Good afternoon to my honorable colleagues here and the general public of St. Martin. Madam Chair, just to notify yesterday, I heard you naming out the notifications of those who were absent. I did not hear my app that I was absent due to being ill. I did mention it in our chat. I know the formal way is through Div, but I did mention it. And because of unforeseen circumstances or whatever, it was not mentioned here public. It was given through to my staff, so today it was also mentioned that I was not well. But I'm here today, Madam Chair, I'm kind of a little crippled. But because of the Prime Minister's statement in his press release that MP's behavior is a disgrace, Madam Chair, I take this office very serious. And I don't think by sending a message to the Prime Minister would have sufficed because he made his statement public. So through you, Madam Chair, Prime Minister, talk to me nice. Because when I'm here on the people's merit. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Lewis, for your notification. And MP Lewis, not on your second point, but on your first point, we usually don't mention the reason for members being absent unless they are, for example, on Parliament business. They're traveling on Parliament business, then we would mention the MP sent notice because he or she is on official parliamentary business. I'm very particular about mentioning that an MP is not here because of medical reasons or whatever the case may be. So no, that's why it is not usually done. If I could just point that out to you. And then I go over and I give the floor to MP Myers. MP Myers, you have the floor for notifications.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleagues here in Parliament, to the Honorable Prime Minister and the support staff, the Honorable Minister of VSA and his support staff, to those listening via different mediums of social media, and to those of you in the Tribune. Good afternoon. I forgot to mention earlier in the Central Committee, I would also like to extend my condolences to the family of Tony Holly, who passed away last week in a traffic accident. He's formerly known as Tony's Printery. The Lake and the entire Lake family and his family in particular, I would like to wish them comfort and strength during this difficult time on behalf of the SAM faction. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Myers. And notice, we now continue with the agenda point for this public meeting. The agenda point is deliberations with the Minister of General Affairs and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor to address the escalating situation involving the nation's fire and ambulance personnel. This document is actually dated November the 10th. So the request for the meeting is dated November the 10th of last year, and it was requested by the members Doran, Irion, York, Ottley, Lewis, and Lacroes. Members of Parliament, a brief reminder that I will allow interruptions during this meeting, and of course I request that members keep them brief. You can challenge assertions to certain things that are said. You can briefly seek clarification on something that was said, or if you have additional information to contribute, but it must always be brief and concise. This particular meeting, as I mentioned, the request was received back in November of last year, on November the 10th to be exact. And the first part of the meeting was convened on November the 17th. So a week later, at that time, we had a Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor. The MP Ottley, as one of the requesters of this meeting, was then given the opportunity in the beginning of the meeting to elucidate on the request. We then had the presentations by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, and questions by members of Parliament in the first round. The meeting was then adjourned to give the ministers time to prepare the answers to these questions, and this meeting was reconvened on January the 29th of this year with the Deputy Prime Minister, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger-Martin, in the absence of the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor. So the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor were in the meeting of January the 29th to answer to the questions, and then the members were given the opportunity, according to the speakers list, to pose questions in the second round. Additionally, a motion of disapproval on the Prime Minister was presented by MP Francisco Lacroes, and during an announcement by the chair indicating that the adjournment of the meeting would follow to allow for the presence of the Prime Minister, a roll call was requested. And the roll call established that there were insufficient members of Parliament present, and as a result, I had to adjourn that meeting due to a lack of quorum. So today we have the Prime Minister, Dr. Luc Mercelina, and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, Mr. Richnel Brug. They have returned to Parliament to provide there were a few questions asked. I know definitely two to Minister Brug, and these will now be answered by the ministers. If any were noted for the Prime Minister, these will also be answered. And so this time I give the floor to Minister Brug to answer to maybe two or three, one question to Minister Brug. Minister Brug, you have the opportunity to, to respond.
Yes, blessed afternoon, everyone. I'll go directly into it. I had one question asked to me by MP York. MP York asks whether the approach taken by the Ministry of VSA as it relates to frontline workers in relation to the function books for VSA is a sole VSA approach or the entire government. Madam Chair Lady, as Minister of VSA, I have the legal responsibility to review and update the function books of VSA. To my knowledge, this approach taken by my person is only for the Ministry of VSA. However, as a frontline worker myself, I would like to encourage all ministers to consider reviewing all function books from a frontline worker perspective as well. So that's the response to MP York. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Brug. I now give the floor to the Prime Minister, and as I see that we have an interruption. So, Prime Minister, before you continue, I'll allow MP Ottley to make his interruption. I guess it has something with what was stated by the Minister. So, MP Ottley, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I listened keenly to the Minister of VSA's answer. And I would ask then, because it seems to be a disconnect when I listen to your answer and then I read the letter of the Prime Minister to the Union stating that the Council of Ministers met and their position is set firm. So On one hand, Honorable, through you, Madam Chair, we have the Minister of VSA that says he is willing to meet, he has meetings, his negotiation is going good. And on the other hand, we have a letter from the Prime Minister that's saying now the Council of Ministers is basically set in stone. So the request from the unions will not be met. I would like clarity on that on your behalf.
Thank you, MP Ottley. I will give the ministers, do you need 2 minutes, 1 minute, or you're good,
Yeah, give me
Minister
1
Bruch?
minute, let me
Well,
just
okay,
confirm it.
this meeting is adjourned for 2 minutes. Meeting adjourned. I hereby reopen the meeting, and we were just at the point for Minister Bruch to respond to an interruption question by MP Ottley, and Minister Bruch will now take the floor for that interruption answer.
Thank you very much, MP Ottley, for that interruption inquiry. I had to caucus to find out exactly which letter in particular you were referring to pertaining to the COM. As it relates to MP York question, it was related to the function book and the function book of the ambulance. That is all. That is the only area where it comes to the negotiation between the ambulance and the fire department. The ambulance falls under VSA, so I am basically only can answer and responsible for the ambulance the ambulance department.
I see MP run into the interruption. MP Lacroes, I see
Legs are short, so
you have a very short
Yes.
interruption to
Yes.
make. I'll allow you to do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, through you to the Minister. I'm somewhat confused. Is the Minister part of COM or is he not part of COM? Because the letter that we received, a copy of that was given to the unions, signed by the Prime Minister, states COM has moved and given the Prime Minister the responsibility. It is his responsibility, and he should take care of it. This was a calm decision, or was it not a calm decision?
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes, for that interruption, and to which
Yes.
the minister is asked if he can to reply.
Yes, so thank you very much for clarifying the question as well. That now it's a lot more clearer because now I know exactly which letter you're referring to. Yes, I am part of COM, and yes, it was a COM decision that each minister will be responsible for their own relevant, what falls under their own ministry. That was a COM decision, yes.
Thank you, Minister of VSA. I now invite the Prime Minister, Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Mercelina, who, as I indicated in the meeting when the motion was presented, that the presence of the Prime Minister be requested and awaited in order for him also to give his views on the motion as has been shared with the Council of Ministers. So I invite the Prime Minister to take the floor. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Madam Chair Lady, Secretary General, members of Parliament, my colleague Minister Brugge and his support staff, and my support staff, good afternoon. Madam Chair Lady, I would like to start with some general remarks, also with reference to your public statement as the Chair of Parliament about the meeting of last Thursday, January the 29th, 2026. Madam Chair, you correctly pointed out that it is this Parliament which requested that when the minister responsible cannot attend a meeting of Parliament, the replacement of that minister should attend. This is exactly what happened last week on Thursday, February the 29th, 2026. As I was unable to attend the meeting, I reached out to the Deputy Prime Minister and asked her to attend the meeting on my behalf, which she kindly accepted. Madam Chair, you also explained very clearly last week that the normal procedure is that after the second round of questioning, and especially after a motion is presented, the meeting is adjourned to give the minister time to prepare the response to the proposed motion. Therefore, for the public viewing and listening to Parliament meetings, I want to reiterate that nothing unusual happened during the meeting of last Thursday, other than some members of Parliament walking out of the meeting, resulting in losing the required quorum. You, Madam Chair, handled the meeting of Thursday, January the 29th, 2026 correctly in accordance with the procedures. The members of Parliament that requested this meeting considered the ongoing issues with the Union of the Fire Department, found it so important that they decided to walk out of the meeting on Thursday, January the 29th of this year. And secondly, when the Prime Minister was there on request of Parliament yesterday, some members of Parliament deliberately did not show up, making it impossible to have quorum for the continuation of the meeting of yesterday. Observing these developments, I have no other conclusion to draw than to think that some members of Parliament are politicizing this matter. while before my tenure, they had enough time. Chair, now I would like to respond to the motion that has been presented to me.
Interrupt you, but we need to check something with the transmission of the meeting. So I will adjourn for 5 minutes.
No problem.
This meeting is adjourned for 5 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby reopen this meeting of Parliament. We had a brief adjournment to check out a technical issue that was during the presentation and answering by the Prime Minister regarding the motion that was presented during a previous part of this meeting. Prime Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I need to share with Parliament that when reviewing the draft option, my impression was, and still is, that this motion was prepared without taking the information and answers provided in the first round into consideration.
Prime Minister, I presently have the request for an interruption, which I will allow, and thereafter I would ask the members to please consider having the Prime Minister at least give a good part of the answers and presentation that he's going to give for other interruptions. So I'll allow MP Irion, who's standing at the lectern, to make his interruption.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just that, I don't want to lose the moment and the Prime Minister then go back to his words. Madam Chair, the Prime Minister mentioned that the motion of disapproval is basically political maneuvering. And so what I want to ask the Prime Minister then, is it only political maneuvering when we do it, or is it similar to the motion of no confidence that you brought to the then Emily in 2019? Was that then also political maneuvering? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. Prime Minister, you may continue.
To give answer to the Member of Parliament, I believe that a motion of disapproval is completely different than a motion of distrust. These are two separate motions that need separate evaluation before you intend to present them on the floor of Parliament. Last week, Madam Chair, a Member of Parliament stated that the meeting did not make sense since a mediator has been appointed. Madam Chair, it is good to recall that last week's meeting was a continuation of a previous meeting requested by Parliament, and the objective of that meeting and its continuation was and still is to provide Parliament with all the necessary information so that Parliament can understand the position of government. This is customary even if the mediation process is ongoing. However, the draft motion presented does not consider the information provided to Parliament. The motion is not substantiated by facts and gives the impression of being, as I said already, politically motivated. Most importantly, the draft motion fails to recognize the critical fact that the government and the union agreed with the appointment of a mediator. In the draft motion, the minister is given a deadline to comply with the request of Parliament. Hereby, the motion completely ignores the fact that the mediation process is ongoing. Madam Chair, the government advises Parliament not to support this draft motion. This motion does not take the information shared with Parliament into consideration and fails to recognize that mediation is ongoing. Despite this, I still would like to provide a detailed reaction to the different statements made in the draft motion. Madam Chair, the first part of the motion reads as follows. Draft motion of disapproval. The Parliament of St. Martin in its meeting of today, January the 29th, 2026, the following. Considering that the Prime Minister is legally and politically responsible for the proper functioning, administration, and oversight of the portfolios of legal affairs, personnel and organization, facilities, the Department of BAC, and the Fire Department. Under the Prime Minister's responsibility, these departments have consistently failed to provide adequate support and services to other ministries, thereby directly contributing to operational failures within those ministries and undermining effective public administration. The motion continues. The persistent lack of coordination, assistance, and timely support from these departments has negatively affected service delivery to the community and has significantly diminished public trust in government institutions. Madam Chair, this first part of the draft motion notes that some of the most critical departments within the government have consistently failed to provide adequate support. One thing I must say is that this part of the motion shows total disrespect to all the civil servants working very long hours in the mentioned departments. They are doing an amazing job, despite the fact that many departments are understaffed and are facing major budget constraints. Madam Chair, it is tempting for me to go back in time and describe the situation I met in all the ministries of government when we took office in May 2024. Of course, it is known that all ministries have been struggling to fill in some critical positions for years. The reasons have varied from the lack of budget to attract necessary experts to the fact that staff members are leaving out of, for example, dissatisfaction with politically play moments in the ministries. However, Madam Chair, I will not go back in time.
MP Lacroes, remember that I had asked us to allow the Prime Minister to give at least part of his presentation before. Since you're standing at the lectern, I'll allow you this interruption.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, the motion had nothing to do with the civil servants itself. It is the support that the civil servants have received and are getting. That is the problem. P&O, for example, not adequate, can be fulfilled. That is what we are talking about. We're not talking about the performance of the civil servants. So the Prime Minister could continue trying to twist it. We know exactly what it is. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. Prime Minister, you may continue.
Madam Chair, we are not giving up. We are going to stay focused and build the professional treasury that government needs. We are not doing that alone. We are working, for example, now together with TWO, and the World Bank on strengthening our most critical departments, in particular YZNW and P&O. In January of this year, I signed a new grant agreement with the World Bank for the SPEAR project, which makes $5 million available for the strengthening of government apparatus in the next 2 years, with a specific focus on strengthening YZNW and P&O. This support is very necessary to address outstanding backlogs and streamline outdated procedures. Concerning the next statement mentioned in the draft motion, Madam, the following. As a direct consequence, this is what is stated in the motion of the Prime Minister's inaction, and failure to engage constructively with essential services, the fire department and ambulance services have been operating under a sustained go-slow since April of the previous year, severely impairing emergency response capacity and placing the safety, security, and well-being of the population, including the country's vulnerable tourism sector, as at a serious risk. The motion continues by making the following statement. The Prime Minister has repeatedly failed to honor commitments made to WICSU PSU. fire department personnel and ambulance personnel concerning long-standing personal and labor issues. Madam Chair, again, I have to mention that these statements do not represent the facts. I have provided Parliament with detailed information on all the actions I have taken, and I continue to honor the commitments made to the unions. I want to recall again that the mediation process is ongoing. I also want to repeat again that the placement process is also ongoing. This was also part of the answers provided in the meeting of last Thursday. It is hard to imagine that members of Parliament do not have this information, which makes it difficult to understand why a motion is presented that lacks substantiation. Another statement made in the motion is the following. The Prime Minister has refused to properly recognize and compensate fire department personnel for years within an incorrect salary scale. This is also a completely incorrect statement. Since 2010, the staff of the fire department was placed in the correct scales as foreseen in the 2010 function book. Over time, trainings were given and new positions were promised. However, due to the absence of a new function book, some of the staff could not be placed in a new position. With the finalization and publishing of a new function book under this Marcelina cabinet in March 2025, staff can be placed in new positions. This new function book was approved, by the way, by the CCSU. As mentioned, the placement process has started and a letter was sent to all the staff at the end of last year. Yesterday, the first meeting of the placement committee was to take place, but this meeting had to be postponed till next week because the same civil servants that are supporting me in preparing this meeting of Parliament are also supporting the placement committee and the whole placement process. Madam Chair, I must again conclude that the motion is not fact-based, but seemingly, again, politically motivated. The next statement in the draft motion reads as follows. The urgent request of the fire department to escalate their personnel matters and go slow action to the Council of Ministers was necessitated by continued inaction on the part of the Prime Minister. Madam Chair, my reaction to this part of the motion is as follows. This is again a completely incorrect and totally misleading statement. First of all, it is not the fire department, but the union representing part of the staff of the fire department who requested a meeting with the Council of Ministers in April of last year. This request was discussed in the Council of Ministers, and the Council of Ministers rightfully concluded that the Minister of General Affairs is the minister responsible to handle these matters with the union. Now, on January the 23rd of this year, the union again requested a meeting with the Council of Ministers. On the same date, acting on my instruction, the Secretary General of the Council of Ministers informed the union that their letter of the 23rd of January would be discussed in the Council of Ministers the following week. Now, instead of waiting for the response of the Council of Ministers, the union sent another letter to the Council of Ministers the day before yesterday on February 2nd, 2026. I can share with Parliament that yesterday the Council of Ministers met to discuss the two letters of the Union. The Department of P&O was represented to provide the Council of Ministers with a technical update on the ongoing discussions and the placement process. Several ministers suggested even that this very worthy technical update that was given would also be helpful for members of parliament to get a better understanding of the applicable procedures and the ongoing mediation and placement process. In the meantime, I have sent a letter today in the afternoon to the Chair of Parliament, actually proposing, if the Parliament is okay with it, for us to come with our technical team to again give an explanation of the ongoing mediation, the actions, and the placement process for everybody to understand the legal framework in which all these decisions has to take place. I think this is a great idea, and Madam Chair, I'm more than willing to arrange for the Department of P&O to provide a technical briefing later whenever Parliament is ready for that. That being said, following the Council of Ministers meeting, a formal response to the Union has been provided. Meanwhile, the mediation and placement process will continue. Now I come to the resolve of the proposed motion, and it reads as follows: to strongly disapprove the manner in which the Prime Minister has handled the above-mentioned situations in his capacity as Prime Minister and as the Minister responsible for general affairs, including legal affairs, personnel and organization, facilities, the Department of BAC, and the Fire Department. Further, to strongly request the Prime Minister to urgently address the concerns in the considerations of this motion and to resolve the long-standing concern of the Fire Department personnel and relevant departments. And thirdly, to return to Parliament within 6 weeks with a full update. Madam Chair, I repeat that the proposed motion is not based on the facts and does not consider all the actions taken under the responsibility of this minister, despite providing Parliament with all the necessary information. There have been many exchanges of information between government and Parliament, including a meeting with the faction leaders in August last year, in which I recall the presenter of the motion that was also personally present in that meeting. Madam Chair, as mentioned, since there is an ongoing mediation process, it does not make sense to give the minister a timeline as the motion is requesting. I can inform you that I will continue with the mediation process to address outstanding concerns of our firefighters. I will also continue with the placement process. As mentioned last Thursday, the Department of P&O already received approximately 20 formal claims of firefighters to be placed in a new function book based on the new function book that was approved by the CCSU and entered into force in March 2025. So there are 20 firefighters already, after we have sent a letter to the firefighter department informing them that the possibility is there for them to submit their information, for them to start with the placement process. Already 20 firefighters submitted all their information for us to be able to proceed with the placement process. This level of response from the firefighters is significant, and I want to compliment the firefighters for cooperating with the placement process. Madam Chair, in conclusion, the presented motion is one, factually incorrect, Secondly, disrespectful to civil servants who are working tirelessly. And three, ill-timed, as there is an ongoing mediation process at this particular moment. Again, let me repeat, the presented motion is factually incorrect, disrespectful to the civil servants, and ill-timed, as there is an ongoing mediation process. Madam Chair, let us keep in mind that many before me had an opportunity to fix this problem, but did not fix this problem. I repeat, Madam Chair, let us keep in mind that many before me had an opportunity to fix this problem, but did not solve that problem. We are now almost at the finish line, so let's avoid that political rhetoric that sets us back and jeopardizes the safety and security of our country. The MP stated that this motion is not political. However, based on my review of the motion and referring to your statements, Madam Chair, and observing the members of Parliament for the meeting of last Thursday, and the position that there was no quorum in the meeting of yesterday, I do not see any other reason than a political reason to present this motion. Madam Chair, the people outside there are tired of this kind of political maneuvering, and I ask all of us, not you, all of us, to act in a mature and responsible manner in the best interest of our country. Our people deserve so much better than this motion. With that, Madam Chair, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Prime Minister Dr. Luc Mercelina, for that presentation. Members of Parliament, you now have the opportunity, if the need is there, for a clarification request. I don't see the need for such. I do see the need now indicated for from MP Lacroes, to whom I give the floor. MP Lacroes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, through you to the Prime Minister. Through you to the Prime Minister, I'd like to first address the word that was used, the disgrace, that word, disgrace. Madam Chair Lady, what is disgraceful is that this meeting was called in November. We are the end of January, beginning of February, and it's still not concluded. Madam Chair Lady, what is disgraceful is that up to today, the fire department still are not happy and still don't see their things happening. Madam Chair Lady, I interrupted and made it clear to the Prime Minister that this has nothing to do with civil servants. Nothing, absolutely nothing to do with civil servants. And the Prime Minister once again mentions the civil servants. This has to do with the Prime Minister and his inaction versus the Minister of VSA and how he has handled the situation. It is very simple. Copy and paste. Why is it working with one and not working with the other? That is the question. Nothing more. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. MP Irion, you have the floor for clarifications, which means that's something that the Prime Minister indicated you would like him to clarify. MP Irion, you have the floor for clarifications.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing when it comes to clarifications, I took a page out of your books. I'll phrase it properly. Doesn't the Prime Minister believe that not showing up to press briefings for almost a whole year is disgraceful? Doesn't the Prime Minister believe that the back and forth between the Minister, not the Minister of VSA, but the situation with the Chief of Staff of the Minister of VSA himself, and even the situation with the council ministers is disgraceful. Madam Chair, doesn't the Prime Minister believe that members of Parliament are entitled to their beliefs? That is a clarification.
We have one chair.
Madam Chair, can you bring order to Parliament, please, Madam Chair?
I shall call for order 1. And MP Irion, you're not really asking a clarification. Let's be honest.
I am honest, Madam Chair. And
No,
again, Madam Chair, then let's go through the rules of order. We want it a moment. It is a clarification. The minister mentioned disgraceful, and he brought attention to the motion and why it is not good in his opinion. I'm asking the questions based on that. So if the chair could point out to me what is not being clarified, then I would.
No, you
cease.
need to point out to me, MP Irion, what has not been clarified by the Prime Minister, and ask him to do so.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm asking the Prime Minister.
What did he say that you're asking him to clarify?
He said the behaviors of the MPs were disgraceful. I'm asking. Madam Chair, can I speak, Madam Chair?
No, but MP Irion, no.
Okay,
I mean,
so
formulate your question, make it a clarification question, and we can continue. MP Irion, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you, members of Parliament. Thank you for assisting here, but allow the MP to continue to make use of the page that he's using, but he's using the wrong page in this particular instance, my page, as he indicated. MP Irion, please state your clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would also like to ask the Prime Minister if the motion that was brought forward, in his opinion, isn't it the entitlement of the MPs that brought the motion to say, hey, we are not in agreement, similar to his motion, we're not in agreement with the operations of how the Prime Minister handled himself. Madam Chair, the Prime Minister pointed out that he is handling all these matters, but it is not the MPs that are bringing this the situation forward. Madam Chair, through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, is he not recognizing that the firemen, the firewomen, the unions are the ones that are saying, this is not being handled. It's not the MPs that call a meeting. So your passive insults to the MPs are not insults to us. It's insults to the same individuals that were here in the stands the last couple of times. These are the same individuals, right, that are not talking about the previous government. They're talking about, through you, Madam Chair, the current Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Irion. MP Ottley, you have the floor for clarifications.
Good day, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Prime Minister. Thank you for your very lengthy and elaborate response to the motion. Madam Chair, the Prime Minister stated that yesterday the Council of Ministers requested from P&O to provide a detailed update, and which the Council of Ministers found this detail from yesterday very helpful. And in fact, the Prime Minister mentioned that it should be shared with the members of Parliament. And I see the Prime Minister shake his head and say yes. So then I would say for clarity, wasn't yesterday fruitful? The fact that the members of Parliament said, you have 24 hours to respond to the unions, and we therefore think that we would grant the Prime Minister the extra time to get whatever answers he needs and to respond to the unions through you, Madam Chair. So yesterday, with all of that information that you were able, through you, Madam Chair, to acquire, wasn't yesterday then beneficial for that period of off? Also, Madam Chair, the Honorable Prime Minister spoke about, the camera is off, years and years of neglect and years of governments not being able to fulfill the requests of the fire department. Madam Chair, I also acknowledge that this didn't start with the Honorable Prime Minister. Do we need a time to? Thank you.
MP Ottley, you may continue.
Thank you. And I also would like to acknowledge that this did not start with the Honorable Prime Minister, but the Honorable Prime Minister is here now. And we have to be very, very careful, because Silveria Jacobs was not the only Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, the chair was also the Prime Minister from 2010 to 2014. Yes. And as a matter of fact, the Honorable Dr. Luke Mercelina and his government was here when 2018, it just came back full circle and fell in your lap. So I would say, for clarity, was no government before working on it? That's what you're saying? You are the only one, through you, Madam Chair, the only government working on this issue with the fire department, because that's what I get from it. Madam Chair, I would like to point out that the Honorable Prime Minister stated that the members of Parliament walked out on a meeting when we could have handled the situation. As a matter of fact, in my recollection, Honorable Chair, the meeting was then over. Madam Chair, we speak about, I would like to ask the Honorable Prime Minister for clarity. May 3rd, 2024. That is when you became the Prime Minister of this country. So, for clarity, when did you start working on the fire department's issues? We're going on 2 years, through you, Madam Chair. When did you start to work on the fire department issues? Madam Chair, that is all the clarification I have right now.
Thank you, MP Ottley. Members, again, you know, it is the clarification round to the answers given in the second round is what we're busy here with today, so please stick to that line. And I now give the floor to MP Lewis. MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, MP Ottley took some of the words that I have written here. Nevertheless, I will continue. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Prime Minister, you wasn't here last week. But last week when I turned this way, I wasn't seeing the colleagues from this faction staff. In here was completely filled with the fire department, their union representative, and other unions representatives who stood in solidarity with them. So through you, Madam Chair, to the Prime Minister, based on what you mentioned about the motion, if I ask the fire department personnel if the motion of disapproval against your person is warranted or politically motivated, what would you think they would say? What would you think they would say, Prime Minister? Because it was mentioned here that these meetings convened because of the personnel. We as Parliament stand here in representation and also in solidarity with those individuals. Because at the end of the day, Prime Minister, these are the same individuals we will be asking to vote for us in our next election. Through you, Madam Chair, the Prime Minister made statements with it, other words, because I cannot quote exactly, that before him, basically as Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, that many others could have fixed this problem. This statement, according to my fellow colleague, which also includes you, Madam Chair, who sat 4 years consecutively as Prime Minister of this beautiful country. Madam Chair, I would like the Prime Minister to clarify if he also believes that you who sit here today, part of that coalition, part of this coalition, sit here today that you have not done nothing as well for the fire department of this esteemed country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I give the floor to the MP. The MP Janssen. MP Janssen, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again, and thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question of clarification to the Prime Minister, as he mentioned that he had a meeting, the fruitful meeting yesterday with P&O, and I was wondering if this meeting was in the morning before the 3 p.m. meeting that was planned in Parliament, and also when was this meeting scheduled? Thank you.
Thank you, MP Janssen. Prime Minister, Minister Brugge, in as far as they regard you, we have had some requests for clarifications. I ask you please to respond to the clarification requests of the members of Parliament. Do you need a minute or two? Can be more than that, but that's okay. You're ready to answer to the members of Parliament. Prime Minister, you have the floor. You may continue.
To MP Lacroes, actually, there was one question about the civil servants. The other one was a statement of disgrace that I didn't mention in this presentation. It's not mentioned in my text. Actually, it's about the civil servants. We have to realize that, and I accept and acknowledge that there is a understaffing not only by P&O, but by many departments in the government. And in those departments, you can realize that they're doing their utmost best. And it's not about, as you said, the civil servants, but at the end of the day, it's what is being produced by the department is at the end of the day carried by hard-working civil servants. So it's not about the civil servants, it's about the outcome. But if you do not have enough staffing, these persons and civil servants are working very hard and they're being judged incorrectly because of the challenge of understaffing. Secondly, I go now to MP Irion. He made a statement about press briefing. I didn't say anything about press briefing, so I cannot give an answer on that one. If I'm in agreement with the motion or not, no, I am not in agreement with the motion.
Prime Minister, allow me to allow MP Lewis briefly to make an interruption.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Prime Minister, who does P&O falls under? P&O falls under, according to me, U.S. General Affairs, Prime Minister, and the Department of the Fire Department. I would also like him to state how much personnel is at the Fire Department, because according to me, it's not that much. So with that said, Madam Chair, I thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, MP Lewis, for that interruption. Prime Minister, you may continue, and if you can respond to MP Lewis's interruption, and Prime Minister, you may continue with your statement, with your answers.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. MP Ottley made a statement about the significance of the action of Parliament that, to his perception, triggered that all of a sudden there was a meeting with P&O. I can inform MP Ottley that this meeting, and MP Veronica Webster-Janssen just asked that question, so I can give answer directly to two MPs. This meeting was more than a week ago planned already. So it's not a meeting that has been triggered on the base of the action plan of Parliament. It's very important for us to know that. It's already a third-party planned meeting in the COM.
I have a job to do.
Prime Minister?
Yes?
I'll allow MP Ottley the opportunity to ask something that was not clear in your answer, I hope it is. So, because the Prime Minister is now responding to clarifications.
Thank you.
But I'll allow you to make the interruption.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, he's referring to my clarification, and if I find something off, I have the need to, interrupt. I never said through you, Madam Chair, to the Honorable Prime Minister that the meeting was triggered by the actions of Parliament. What I did say, I guess other people want to do my interruption for me?
Maybe.
Okay. So what I did say, I said the meetings was held with P&O yesterday.
Yes.
Parliament wrote a letter stating we will give the Prime Minister the 48 hours. Instead of bringing the motion yesterday, we granted Prime Minister the extra time to deal and respond to the unions. A lot of action happened yesterday, which I asked the Honorable Prime Minister, then that time frame that was given by Parliament, would you find it prudent?
MP Ottley, just for the sake of the understanding of the general public, this was not by Parliament, because you're saying this.
Okay, well, by the United People's Party, National Alliance, and the Now faction. Would you then say, with all that was uncovered yesterday, that that time frame was found prudent? I never said that it was triggered.
Okay, thank you, MP Ottley. Members of Parliament, we will now allow the Prime Minister to finish his responses to the clarifications. Prime Minister, you may continue.
Yes, the next question is that I have been the minister, Prime Minister, since the 3rd of May, 2024. And actually, I was intending to actually start to work immediately on the issues by the fire department. But do not forget that I was almost only 2 weeks in office, and they threw down my government. And then we became demissionaire. So, of course, even during the time of being demissionaire, I was in contact with the fire department, exploring what was going on there. Thirdly, there is here from MP Lewis a statement about in the time of many prime ministers before me, and if, for example, the President of Parliament that was one of those prime ministers in the past, what I can recall is that the first prime minister of St. Martin as of 10-10-10 was our Honorable President of Parliament, Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams. And I can tell you something, she made sure that the fire department had a function book as of the moment that Country St. Martin became a country. So that means that in the phase that she was in, there was no reason of discussion of a maltreatment of the fire department, because she made sure as Prime Minister that she started the new history of Country St. Martin with a correct function book in 10-10-10. So the time spent as this Prime Minister was leading the country, there were no questioning that she did not contribute for improving the status of the firemen. There was now a question from what I answered already from MP Veronica Webster. As I said, the planning that we had with P&O was already planned. The way government works is that we do not take decisions ad hoc for third-party meetings. We have annotated agendas. We have to plan the week before the week of the meeting. Everything is already set, that even when you invite third parties, they have the opportunity and time to prepare to present whatever they have to present. There was one more question from MP Lewis, and that was how many people are working by the fire department, and it is approximately 50 to 55 persons working by the fire department. Madam Chair, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister Dr. Luc Marcelina, for your answers to these clarifications. We have actually come to the end of these deliberations. A motion has been presented, and we will start with the handling of that motion. The motion has been read, so I will just read the resolutions, and every member, of course, is in possession of the motion. And this motion, after some 7 considerations, resolves to strongly disapprove the manner in which the Prime Minister has handled the above-mentioned situation in his capacity as Prime Minister and as the Minister responsible for general affairs, including legal affairs, personnel and organization, facilities, the Department of BAC and the Fire Department, to strongly request the Prime Minister to urgently address the concerns in the consideration of this motion, and to resolve the long-standing concerns of the Fire Department personnel and relevant departments. 3, to return to Parliament within 6 weeks with a full update. We are now ready to go over to the voting on this motion. Does anyone require hoofdelijke stemming? I did hear that a request for hoofdelijke stemming, so we shall go over to the voting. Just give a minute or... Oh yes, we'll first take the motivation round on the motion. Members of Parliament, those who wish to make a motivation. We start with MP Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to motivate my vote. Madam Chair, I will be voting for this motion today, and not because of the political games that we have seen being played today. But in a year and a half, what bothers me as an MP and as a member of this coalition is that information has been reaching us only when it reaches the boiling point. It is not only opposition's role to enforce accountability, that's something also that this faction has been very privy about, but it's Parliament's job as a whole, throughout our right of questioning, our right of amendment, etc., to matters that affect our public services. And we make sure that these services are addressed efficiently and effectively. That being said, Madam Chair, I would also like to thank the Prime Minister for taking up the helm to remedy this long-standing issue concerning our frontline workers. Because to me today it's pretty clear that it's not the current Prime Minister's fault that we have arrived at this end of the road, but it's also very clear that he's the one with the responsibility right now to fix it. The sentiments and the detriment of all these government departments that have been put in the back seat from even when before I was elected has now reached its boiling point. Also, I wanted on record, Madam Chair, that this motion of disapproval in no way means that I, first of all, do not support my government or that I will not support my government in the future. I'm here to stay. But you see, Madam Chair, through you, these are the games that have plagued St. Martin for so long, up to the point where we have failed as a country to hold our office holders in the past, present, and possibly future accountable for issues that bother us, the people, on the daily. So I'm here to nip whatever rumors run rampant right here in the bud. So, Madam Chair, I say to you, regardless of if this motion passes today, the message is very clear to not only the government, but also to the people. Let's get serious, let's fix it as a whole, and hold ourselves accountable for the people. And let's stop these political blame games along the way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Peterson. MP Ottley, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, today, as we handle this motion of disapproval, it has my support, my full support. The motion of disapproval is my way of saying I do not approve the way that the situation is being handled. I think that things could go different. There's a lack of communication. There is talks of, I listened to the Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair, say that he committed, I have already committed in a letter, but then when I read the latest letter, it says no commitment can be made. So there's some line that needs to be filled. And to the Honorable Prime Minister, I hope that this motion, whether it passes or not, the fact that it's presented puts a fire under your foot and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Ottley. The next MP to speak to the motion or motivate his or her vote is MP Lewis. MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, I think it would be remiss of me if I do not clear the air. When I choose to make a decision, I'm here today as a member of Parliament, the No faction, because I'm the only one in this faction. When I have to listen to the cries and have fire department personnel not only reach here in Parliament to visit me, Prime Minister, but also at my home, when I have to caucus moreover with different union representatives pertaining to the problem at hand, and pertaining to the manner of which things are being handled, I have to come to a decision whether me and the Prime Minister are friends or not. But today, this is business. Because if it was me, the motion of disapproval, I do not see it as a motion of confidence. But for those who do not understand, it is like a warning letter. A warning letter to you, Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair, that there are ways to handle the business of this country, and that our people indeed comes first. Sometimes it's not the way we say things, but it's also the way that we do things. And the people that were here last week, Prime Minister, feels like they do not have the support of their Prime Minister. And it is my job to make sure that the Prime Minister and his COM are accountable in handling the people's business with full support and respect. With that, Madam Chair, I think I have motivated why I will vote for this motion.
Thank you, MP Lewis. The next MP to speak is MP Janssen. MP Janssen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. I feel a need to motivate my vote today because I have a record of having voted for a motion presented by MP Lacroes in the past. When MP Lacroes presented his motion on LNG and we asked the Prime Minister what he thought of it, the Prime Minister at the time said that he did not think that it was something that we should pursue as an island. However, I at the time thought, no, I side with MP Lacroes. So I would like to say today that I too will vote according to my conscience. And when I look at what the Prime Minister had presented, what the Prime Minister has been presented from the time that we started with this meeting, way back when we started in November, the Prime Minister has presented numerous letters and correspondence. So when you hear that there was no communication, I question how there was no communication. We have received those letters back and forth in between the parties. We have seen where the Prime Minister has been able to commit to some of the things that were asked of the fire department. And when you look at the people behind it, the fire department, the actual workers, yes, I too can acknowledge and see that something went wrong over the years, over the many years with the fire department, with the ambulance, with the justice department. But will this motion today help those fire department workers? I do not see how that will help them. And so I will not be supporting this motion today.
Thank you, MP Janssen. MP Labega has the floor. MP Labega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, first of all, I'd like to thank the first responders and all that they do for society on a daily basis. You know, many times we go out in the community as elected officials and people tell us honorable members of parliament, honorable ministers, but I think they're the honorary civil servants of this community. Now, Madam Chair, many times when motions like this are presented, it's pegged as for, against. If you're against, that means you're against the plight. In this terms, we're talking about the first responders, but that is not the case. We're specifically speaking about the context of this motion. If we go back to last week, even the Prime Minister alluded to, which I also had here on my paper, that a member of Parliament stated, and I quote, "The mediation process is still ongoing and we don't have the results to deliberate here today. How are we going to move forward? What is the reason for the meeting today?" While I disagree with the latter part of what the reason for the meeting was on that day, I agree with if mediation was agreed to by both parties and that mediation process is still ongoing, then how could we sit here and say that the Prime Minister is inactive or taking lack of action, or however the resolution states? The government is simply waiting for the results of the mediation. So to come and say that we're going to present, or not we're, but members of Parliament, the opposition is going to present a motion showing dissatisfaction with the Prime Minister, not having the results of that mediation, to me is irresponsible. And on top of that, they requested that the Prime Minister be here in person. Now when the Prime Minister shows up in person, they themselves don't show up. That, to me, is irresponsible. And then on top of that, they sent a letter yesterday requesting that the Prime Minister responds to the union's inquiries within the 48 hours that the union said that they wanted to, which is fine. But to me, the Prime Minister responding to a third party's questions does not negate your responsibility as a member of Parliament to come to Parliament and give quorum for a meeting. Now you're trying to say that you want those questions answered so you could, and I quote, "clarity on the government's position and intended course of action, informed parliamentary deliberation, enabling members to address the issue responsibly on the behalf of the people of St. Martin." But you gave the motion of disapproval before you had this information. So now you're saying that you would like this information to properly deliberate in Parliament is contradicting and makes no sense to me. So because of that, and because the mediation process is still ongoing, and we will await that process, as some of the members of also stated, because of that, I would not be supporting this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Labega. I see MP Irion requesting the floor.
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Minister, Madam Chair, the Prime Minister, I believe, is too busy playing in the Ministry of ECYS, playing in the Ministry of ASR, playing in the Ministry of Rummy, to have enough time to focus on his own ministry and focus on the fire department to get over the finish line. And MP Janssen mentioned that this motion today basically is useless. But Madam Chair, you know, when I look at the
What? MP Janssen, what is your persoonlijke feit?
MP Irion mentioned that I said that the motion was useless, and I did not mention that. So that's my persoonlijke feit.
It is
So
one
he should
because
withdraw it.
the member of parliament did mention you by name and actually gave what would have been a quote from you. MP Irion, you have heard the member raised her persoonlijk feit in terms of what you stated. MP Irion, you may continue with the motivation of your vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was mentioned that the motion today will not help. I'll say that. But Madam Chair, you know, when I look at the USM faction, when there was a motion, a potential motion of no confidence against the current Minister of Rummy, at that point in time, it was never discussion about a motion that would not help. And today, the Prime Minister talks about political maneuvering, but that same faction, right, has been really political maneuvering. And I think today, as MP Ottley mentioned, this is our position. This is the position of the union. This is the position of the members. There's not one member of the union that is saying that the former ministers didn't work on it. They're not saying that there were issues in the past, or not saying there were not issues in the past. They are saying you are the issue now. That's what they are saying. Madam Chair.
MP Roseberg, I know you're eager to make an interruption, but at this motivation stage yes. Yeah.
And he was a former chairman. Come on, you should know better as a chair.
Yes. MP Irion, were you finished with your motivation?
Yeah, well, I was interrupted, but Madam Chair.
No, you were not interrupted. It was being requested that you be interrupted. MP Irion, please finish your motivation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, in that regard, Madam Chair, the strength and position of myself today in supporting this motion, that I am supporting the motion, comes from the members of the fire department, the union, and as was stated before, it says we want you to do better. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. I see MP Roseberg wishes to motivate her motion. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Blessed afternoon to everyone present here today. Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of ASI and support staff, and my dear colleagues here as well. Seeing that indeed I'm part of the URSM faction, I do want to make it clear that what my dear previous speaker spoke about, I'm not familiar with no motion of no Minister of Romy or whatsoever. So please, let's stick to the facts here today. And the facts here today is that there's a motion being presented, and the question is if you're pro or against the motion. So therefore today, I will give my motivation why I will not be supporting this motion. For all that know, and for the ones that do not know, I, Shamira Donata Mahatma Roseberg, stand here for the people of St. Martin, on behalf of the people of St. Martin, and when I'm for something, I will support it, coalition or opposition. When I'm against something, I will support it, or do not support it. So therefore, I'm standing here stating the facts, and we need to stop using motions to have other hidden agendas being brought forward. The fact here today is that there is a motion of disapproval against the Prime Minister, and when I read that motion, I cannot agree with the content of that motion. If we were here today and the Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair, is stating that nothing happened, is stating that he cannot provide information, then I can understand some kind of feelings that something needs to be done. But we cannot ignore the fact that several documentation has been provided to Parliament. We cannot ignore the fact that the first time when the Prime Minister and the Minister of VSA and the hard-working firefighters and ambulance personnel was here present, it was mentioned, and I was one of the persons that mentioned it, mediation is needed. Mediation is needed. And the core of mediation is, Madam Chair, that parties come together, discuss what they would like to bring forward, discuss what the issues might be, discuss where there is an agreement, and from there we move forward. So therefore, we need to make it clear that currently where we are is that we are at the part of mediation. The Prime Minister made it clear that mediation is ongoing. And thank you for my MPs for listening clearly, that mediation is ongoing, that the steps are being taken to reach to a result which was started by others and now being finalized by the current Prime Minister, and therefore give him his time. Therefore, I will not be supporting this motion because at this point, it will not make a difference and it is not clear and correct what is stated in that motion. And the people of St. Martin need to know that. I'm against.
Thank you, MP. Thank you, MP Roseberg. We have no further motivation, so I go over to we do have one more at least, and that is MP De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Perhaps I have a soft spot for the fire department because they saved about 75% of my house from a nasty piece of work. So, but we still have an issue that when people feel ignored, escalation follows. And a lack of communication is not a small issue. That's what turns manageable problems into crises. Now, I don't think that the fire department deserves to go slow in order to be heard. And the fact that we're here today is actually proof of a failure of leadership, but not just on the side of the Prime Minister, it's on the side of the fire department as well. And from day one, I have said communication was the issue here. And through you, I want to directly send a message to the Prime Minister that I know what compassion he is capable of because of how he dealt with me when I started my political career and we were in the same place together. And that same compassion has to be found right now to resolve this as soon as possible. In addition, it is my understanding that maybe April this year is the time that the 3-year review is coming up. And I would say to use that April 2026 date as a guideline, or actually as a deadline, to actually get anything resolved. Because after that, my patience is not unlimited. But there's absolutely no way that I can support this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you, MP De Wever. We now, members of Parliament, go over to the voting. And I will have the MP Myers, you may motivate your vote.
Not just yet. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your indulgence. Good afternoon to my colleagues in Parliament and to the Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Minister of VSA, and those of you in the Tribune, those of you listening via social media. Madam Chair, I've sat and I've listened and I followed this situation, the entire course of the situation. One of the questions that comes to mind, and it's been mentioned, since we became a country, we've had 6 prime ministers. Dr. Messalina being the sixth, you being the first, and everything in between. I do not believe in the rhetoric and pointing fingers as to, but I cannot, in my good conscience, find how a vote towards the Prime Minister for his handling of this situation will solve the problem of the firefighters. The kind of politics, in essence, that is being played to try to say that if you do not support this motion, you're against the fire department, is ludicrous. It is the craziest stretch that anyone could ever reach. Because the question is, why now the sudden escalation? And I understand that everything reaches a boiling point. So I could feel and understand the frustration because it has been 15 years. 15 years. And in my first presentation to Parliament on this matter, although I was never Prime Minister, I mentioned we all have a part in this. We all have a part in this in not handling these situations. But here we are now, and the only solution we can come with is to say to give the Prime Minister a motion of disapproval, and that is going to solve the fire department's problem. It will not. And as such, I cannot support this motion because of that very thing. If it will solve their problem, which means the removal of the previous 5 prime ministers, their problem would have already been solved. So it's not a Prime Minister thing. It's an administrative thing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Myers. I now give the floor to MP Lacroes for his motivation on the vote, on his vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, when in school, I was taught that there's a procedure on dealing with a patient. And I know that the Prime Minister, being a surgeon, a doctor, he also knows the procedure. It starts with an anamnesis. In that anamnesis, you sit, you have a conversation with your client, with the patient. You find out what is going on, what is the problem. Then you have a lichamelijke onderzoek. So you're going to dive in and figure out mechanically what is the problem. Then you do een aanvullende onderzoek, a diagnosestelling, and most important, the behandelplan. That is what we are talking about here today, Madam Chair Lady. The Prime Minister has had 2 years to come up with a behandelplan, a plan on how to get this in order. I could have understood, Madam Chair Lady, if the Prime Minister said, hey, we can't afford to pay you from 2003. And you're asking for this? No, we could only do from 2010. But then I would find in the budget revenue generating measures to be able to cover those. Is geen behandelplan. There is no plan. The motion is simple. It was awarding the Prime Minister to de-escalate the situation another 6 weeks, because we are fully aware of what is going to happen for Carnival, for Regatta, for when these men and women are needed the most. Madam Chair Lady, no one mentioned anything about if you vote against, if you vote for, if this is against the... No, nothing to do with that. Nothing at all. Being the professional that the Prime Minister is, I had expected that Prime Minister, after seeing and hearing that a motion was brought forth, that the communication line would have sought to be opened 100% with the fire department, and that we would have gotten back a letter stating, as the members of parliament who signed that letter, stating, members, I have it under control. We are getting there. I realize there's a lack of communication. This is missing. We're moving forward. That is not what we got. What we got is a figure it out. That is extremely disrespectful to the members of parliament, to the fire department, and to everybody else who is sitting down wondering what will happen if one day their house catch a fire. It is terrifying. And therefore, my motion, I will vote for. And I wish I could have voted 8 times for. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. No, that would invalidate the voting. So I now give the floor to MP Weaver. MP Weaver, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, almost evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, Griffier, Honorable Prime Minister, support staff, and my honorable colleagues here in the House of Parliament. I would like to make it clear, but I think a lot of the members already mentioned it, that this is definitely not an issue that started yesterday, or even on the contrary, not 2 years, but a year and some change that the Honorable Prime Minister has been in office. It's been there for years. So obviously that shows as well that it's more intricate, it's more to it, and it's not just an easy fix to handle. And as we know, anything that needs to be done good might take some time. And the thing is that, of course, nothing against the firefighters. I definitely respect the firefighters, the firemen and the firewomen. But there's always two sides of a coin, and we're not dealing just with the firemen, the firewomen, and the government. We're also dealing with the union as well. So we need to look at the full picture and take the full accountability where that goes as well. And when we hear the members say that there is no solution, no action has been given, I say on the contrary. I mean, we heard letters going back and forth, and even my colleague MPs mentioned that there's so many communication that there seems to be an impasse at a certain point, that a mediator or mediation was required. And I think the public needs to be aware that we can't say nothing is being done while we are in mediation. And the mediation is to ensure that all parties involved are properly represented and heard, and a solution is given to the firemen and women, because I think at the end of the day, that is the main goal. And we need a solution that's going to last, and that's not here as a simple fix, and then in a few years from now, we're going to hear again that stuff needs to be done. I mean, we've seen it as well, like the hospital has been a foundation for a while, and now all of a sudden we're seeing movement with the hospital. So are we saying that the years it took for the hospital to reach here, that the previous minister of VSR should have gotten a vote of no confidence or vote of disapproval just because there was just a foundation, you know? So what are we really saying? Everything takes time before it can, you know, that we can make sure that it's done the correct way. So I just once again want to state, Honorable Chair Lady, that I will be voting against this motion, as it is proven that obviously things are done and have been done, and we are currently in the mediation phase of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Weaver. Members of Parliament, I believe now, yes, we have come to the point of voting, and we start with the number 14. We don't have 14. I go to the number, do we have a 13? Neither. We go to the number 10. And so the voting starts with MP Roseburg. MP Roseburg.
Against.
MP Ludmila de Weaver.
Against.
MP Christopher Waver.
Against.
MP Artwell Irion.
For.
MP Veronica Janssen-Webster.
Against.
MP Dumarla Bega.
Against.
MP Francisco Lacroes.
For.
MP Lyndon Lewis.
For.
MP Franklin Myers.
Against.
MP Omar Ottley.
For.
MP Rayon Peterson. Chair Lady Sarah Westcott Williams.
Against. The result of the voting is 4-6, so 6 for and 7 against. This motion has not been carried. Hold on, I'm getting a recall. My apologies, our addition went haywire there for a moment. For this motion are 5 votes. Against this motion are 7 votes. This motion is thereby not carried. Prime Minister Dr. Luc Mercelina, Minister of VSA, Mr. Brug, your support staffs, thank you for being here this afternoon. Members of Parliament, thank you for your participation in this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your interest in this meeting. And we have hereby come to the close of this meeting. This meeting of Parliament is hereby closed.